Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. I know what you conniving money, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. You can keep your conniving money when you've been knocked for a bum. In a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, never money, never money, money, never money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker, neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a kill the piece. A 2 pound note and a kill the piece. A 2 pound note and a kill the piece. This all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I know what you can have in money. Oh, Joseph.
program.
Never joke, never joke, never joke. Oh, money, never, money, never, money, money, never, money, money, I know what you conniving, money, money, never, money, never, money, money, never, money, money, you can keep your conniving, money. When you been a corrupt in a bills there be money. Now because you money down, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bills there be money. Now because you money down, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me work for. A 2 pound note and a get a piece. A 2 pound note and a get a piece. A 2 pound note and a get a piece. This is all the money that me work for. I said money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, now know what you can have in money. Oh, Joseph.
Oh, Joseph, poor me. Morning, how you morning? How you doing? How you doing? How you spend yesterday? I hope your yesterday was productive. I hope that your last night was restful. And I hope today you are re-energized. And you have renewed your determination. The struggle is struggle to ensure that Guyana is a Guyana for all people. The struggle is struggle to ensure that when the time comes for elections, the lists are clean. The list is cleaned. I hope you're prepared to struggle to ensure that every family, every citizen who is owed it gets justice. Yes. I hope that you're ready to stand by your political representatives. And I hope that they are ready to hold this illegitimate, and like I heard Coretta McDonald said, temporary government accountable. Accountable. It is 7 hours 28. You tune to the Buxtonian Morning Time. There are lots of things that I want to talk about this morning. And they, as usual, concern citizens and their well-being, their welfare. There are lots of folks who are sending me complaints of what's happening in the communities. And the authorities are doing nothing about it. Many of these issues are environmental in nature. They affect people's bread and butter. And the authorities are doing nothing about it. I'll start with a guy named Miram. Mr. Miram, I hope you're listening. Miram has a problem in front of his home, he says. Who is that now? Yeah, that one, yeah, alone.
This is what's going on here. The man name is Guy. He have a big pen mining over 2,000 chicken. And he don't care what's happened to the kids.
One of the problems we have in this society is people have allowed things to decay. The authorities have allowed things to decay for such a long time that a lot of people see wrong things as right things.
This morning.
Right? And when others complain, they feel aggrieved as if they're the ones who were wronged. Here is a man Miriam, as I said, his name is.
You can see what happened here with this carrion crow, look.
He's complaining about
the chicken. The pen is there. And so the chicken on the first lot, he have a chicken.
Living in an area, living in a community where his neighbor, someone in close proximity, not everybody live next to his anyway, you know. Oh yeah, is rearing poultry on a large scale. And with that rearing of poultry on a large scale comes its discomforts. I could tell you about that because I've seen it in some places where people are rearing poultry and swine and stuff like that in what is supposed to be living areas, living quarters, what we call them, residential areas, etc. Right? And the authorities are doing absolutely nothing despite complaints. This is
Appreciate that, sir. That stuff really gets me real bad.
Right? Let's go to the first video of Miriam complaining.
This morning, you can see what happened here with this carrion crow, look.
I'm kind of struggling to find my way around this technology this morning. A little tough. But here we are.
This morning, you can see what happened here with this carrion crow, look. That this man to the chicken, the pen is there. And so the chicken on the first lot, he have a chicken pen minding about 2,000 chicken and more. And we call NDC, they came here and they couldn't do anything about it, I guess. Look on top of the tree. Look on top of the tree with all the crow. The smell make the kids have to go to the hospital every 2 days, so we have to take them, but they can't take the smell and vomiting. Big people and stuff out. Look on the road. Look. When you talk, nobody, you're gonna get no answer from nothing. This is what's going on here. The man name is Guy. He have a big pen mining over 2,000 chicken. He don't care what's happened to the kids them up here. All those shiny crow and the dogs eating that chicken. Look on top of the tree. How much is there? Thank you. You guys have a nice day when we having a smell days.
I appreciate that, sir. That stuff really gets me real bad and get the children in bad. The stinks of the pen make our nose start to get burning and swelling, and nobody does anything. The sanitary come, they bring some guys from New Amsterdam come, and they say they're going to take care of it, and nothing take care. I got all the video from the time I sending this stuff to these people, and nothing doing until today, maybe a year now, and now it get worse and worse. I understand this is anti-patient day, so you may be busy this weekend, but I really want this to go on. I don't know what.
Yes, so that's Miriam. I'm complaining about what's happening in Borbies there. Someone in the locality is rearing poultry on a large scale and not taking care of the sanitation. And so the impact, the environmental impact, is having a negative impact on them. And so he has said that he has approached the authorities on several occasions and nothing is being done about it. Remember that young lady from Puerto Right, remember that young lady from Puerto Yes, she too is still complaining that the authorities have done nothing about her situation. Nothing they have done about her situation, and she is asking for help. As a matter of fact, she said that the other day, day before yesterday, I think, she saw the man or husband or ex-husband, whichever one she determines it to be, at a rum shop. She went and got the police, and instead of the police doing what they ought to have done, they simply went to him, spoke to him, and went back to her and advised that he promised to get her stuff the other day. Well, I'm yet to be informed. I think she promised to call me today to tell me if she got her stuff or not. But one of the problems, a continuing problem in this society, is that people who are supposed to do what they are supposed to do are not doing it. Ever so often the citizens have to get to the media to complain about folks not living up to their responsibilities and doing their duties. Because what you find happening in communities especially is that everybody knows somebody and everybody is friend with somebody and everybody is receiving some benefit from somebody, to say the least. And so if your friend is someone in the NDC or the RDC, you can do as you like, because they are not going to ensure that you follow the laws. If you have a friend who is close to the government, then you can do as you like. Right? And that is what is happening across this country. You can have a tinted vehicle dark as night and drive comfortably along if you're a friend with a senior police officer or a traffic rank who works in certain districts of the country. You can play loud music all night long. The neighbors can complain. But if you're friends with the ranks at the police station because you would pass and drop a blight for them, or you are going to drink two stout together, or you know somebody that knows somebody, then it's all well and good. I read something from, what's his name, Leroy Smith the other day. And that article points to one of the problems we have in this society. I don't know how many of you read it, but I think it was titled Disrespectful. Now, Leroy Smith is complaining that somebody called him in the wee hours of the morning. They were out having a good time, sporting as we like to say. And apparently the police decided that it was time for the fete to finish, maybe after 2. And whoever the person was called Leroy Smith to ask him to call somebody, a higher rank in the police force, to ensure that the sport continues. While it's a legitimate complaint from Leroy Smith that his rest was disturbed for something that he didn't consider important at the time, it points to a deeper problem. It points to exactly what I'm saying. By now, everybody should know that Leroy Smith maybe is the apple of the eyes of the acting commissioner of police. Leroy Smith sings to the tunes of the acting commissioner of police. He's his mouthpiece, his defender, his everything. And so my assumption based on observation is that Leroy Smith pulls ranks or has ranks or is considered to have ranks in the Guyana Police Force or among members of the Guyana Police Force. Ranks of the Guyana Police Force. You know, Guyanese like to ask, do you know who I am? You know who I be by? I'm making a transfer tomorrow. You best ask yourself. Right? And the fact that somebody can call him to say, hey, do this seminar, shows that they know that he has the links which can make it happen. Who was to assume that it didn't happen before? But on this particular morning, he wasn't in the mood to make it happen. I've seen it happen in this society. I always point out to what happens in this society. Those who are connected do the gods, as people like to say. And they're not brought to face the consequences or the negative consequences. Right? I've seen people, and I always try to establish that nexus. I've seen people got themselves tied up in drug runnings, tied up in illegal arms and ammunition. And they did not spend a day in the lockups, much less in jail. I want to actually ask something. You see, when I started to talk about these things, I remember things. Early in the life of the PPP government, and you can go back to your newspapers and check when I'm done talking. Early in the life of the PPP government, there was a drug bust. Some people considered it a big one on Church Street. Now, I'm not being correct. Irving Street, that might be. In the vicinity of Guyana. Y'all remember that drug bust? The chase started somewhere. First stop was around the vicinity of Guyana. And then they ended up in another area, Sobrianville or Campbellville, where more drugs were confiscated. Do you remember that? Have you ever heard of that case being prosecuted in the courts of Guyana? I certainly haven't. I certainly haven't. I've known, like I said, of people getting tied up in all kinds of illegalities in one phone call. And it's like, it never happened. But what happens as a result of that connection? Shiraz is calling it connections. Yes, it's connections. But how do these connections affect the smooth functioning of society? Those connections, as you call them, those connections are what the law calls perversion of the course of justice or obstructing justice. You remember recently 2 policemen were charged in the Queen Bacchus murder for attempting to pervert the course of justice or something to that extent, because they give what the officers considered inaccurate statements. But when others are guilty of doing the same thing, we simply call it connections. Right? How do those connections affect the smooth functioning of society? In the instance of this guy who is complaining about the chicken pen, the poultry farm, right? The poultry farm. I take your bet there are connections there. There's a situation in Melanie. Scotty, if you're listening, feel free to call and tell us more about that situation. There's a situation in Melanie where one man, through his construction, has blocked off several drains in the area, which results in flooding of other people's property every time it rains. And even when it's not raining, stagnated water. Several complaints were made to the Buxton Falls NDC, and to date, that situation has not been rectified. Why? Because he has connections. Connections which have been named to me. He has connections. How do those connections affect the smooth functioning of the NDC? Because obviously the NDC is not performing its duties. Because it's obvious in my mind, if he has blocked drains, it means that he has overstepped his boundary for construction. Where is the PHI, the Public Health Inspector? Where are the PHIs? Have they visited and given instructions? And if these instructions were ignored, why hasn't this individual been placed before the court as yet? Because of connections. Policeman Ruplal, Prasad, Ramatar, and others who are involved in the murder of Quinton Bacchus are today walking the roads without having been charged because of connections. It has been established that Ruplal, for example, is connected to people sitting in high office at the National Assembly. Are they the ones who are protecting him, preventing him being charged? Somebody is asking, do they have what? If they have public health inspectors? Yes, they have public health inspectors. We used to call them sanitary. Something body, you go to the sanitary. And the sanitary has the authority to issue instructions to fix it, so long as it had to do with the environmental. They call them public health inspectors now, PHI. I don't know if that name has changed too. Right? But when these connections are working for one individual, as in the poultry farmer, for example, or the guy at Melanie, how are these connections negative for society and the other citizens of society? Stagnated water means stench, number one. But more than that, it means mosquitoes infestation. Mosquitoes infestation means the spreading of diseases, whether it's typhoid, whether it's malaria, whatever it is. But the question is, are the people with connections and the people who they are connected to even smart enough to recognize the harm of this connection, of these connections, and at least try to do the decent thing? I usually tell people, I know a lot of people, and if I were to get into problems, there are lots of people I can call, but I don't call people for favors. Especially, it has to be life and death, quite frankly. Right? I try my utmost to live within the confines of the law. Right? I'm told that sanitary PHI are now called environmental health officers. Right? But this is an indication, or these are indicators of a wider societal problem. Many people don't see that way. It comes all the way back to governance. Good governance versus bad governance. Because you can only have nonsense happening down at the level of the NDCs. Because the RDCs are failing to do what they're supposed to do. Provide proper supervision and guidance. And investigate when complaints are made. If I remember clearly, the people of Melanie indicated that they went even to the RDC to complain about the situation. And nothing has changed it. Nothing has changed. So when you have this kind of connections and corruption, there's a long-term impact on your society. I witnessed the other day, and I usually refer Buxton Falls NDC because I live in that neighborhood. The other day I witnessed a resident who had what I would say a small business, thriving business, if I dare argue that. That resident decided, well, listen, I must create a larger space for my clientele. Because, of course, business is booming, business is growing, more people are coming, they have to be comfortable. Fair enough, it's okay for you to do that. But the question is it not correct? Is it not correct that those things be done within the confines of the law? And what the confines of the law recommend? No building, as far as I'm aware, is supposed to be closer than 10 feet to the boundary of the plot it occupies. Right? In other words, the boundary around your construction should be a minimum of 10 feet. There should be a minimum of 10 feet between your building and your fence. Your fence usually falls on or falls within what we call a pal, or the pal, right? The pal. You know, people talk about pal off. Good. There's a surveyor's pal. That is when they survey, they mark your boundary with a piece of metal or wood or something driven to the extremities of your boundary. And so when you're constructing, you are guided by that. There is supposed to be by law a distance of not less than 10 feet between that pole and your construction. But when you move around the communities, what you find, people are not only constructing right up to the pole, but they're going beyond the pole. And when they do that, in most cases they do it, these front lots, if you call them that, the lots which are closest to the streets and to the roads and so on, the front lots. Because when they do that, it is actually public property that they're infringing on. And so I'm telling you, I saw this situation where this business was expanded right into the drainage of the area. Right into the drainage of the area. Now what will happen there? Same thing I explained earlier. Water will not be able to run off of the lands when it rains. Some people argue that they will put a pipe. But does the diameter of the pipe inhibit the water flow? Does it give it the same capacity as the original drain? Will it allow for the water runoff to be as efficient as if it were the original drain? But people in their selfish ways don't consider that. And the people at the NDCs don't do their work. As far as I understand, every neighborhood democratic council is supposed to have in its employ a ranger, along with the overseer and rates and tax collectors. There must be a ranger, or ought to have been a ranger. I know for a fact Buxton Falls NDC doesn't have a ranger. What is the job of the ranger? Like the NDC, like the chair, like the overseer. The ranger is supposed to walk the neighborhood, observe infringements, report it to the overseer, who should then take it up with the council and issue the necessary letters of warning, seize order, etc., etc. That doesn't happen. Or even when a letter is issued, because it happens once and far, when you have no connections, you're likely to get your letter. Even when that happens, somebody looks for somebody with connections and the status quo remains. And so you have a society, you have a neighborhood where lawlessness is the order of the day. You have a country where lawlessness is the order of the day, because everybody has a connection. Are these connections good for us? They may appear good for us because we as individuals get to do as we wish. We get our heart's desire, our heart's content. But what are the long-term implications? It's like we're facing nationally. Everybody on Regent Street got a connection to the PPP. Everybody on Wall Street got a connection to the PPP. Every businessman got a connection to the PPP. And so when they want to set up their runnings, they use those connections. And so you have a society that is filled with lawlessness. Bars are supposed to be closed by a certain time, say 2 o'clock. Police can't enforce it. Because somebody will call somebody, who will call somebody, and the policeman will be told, stand down, unless you want to get transferred. We have to do better. We have to do better. Like I said, most of the things I will be talking about this morning are matters that are concerning citizens in their communities. Look at these photos. Ibon Lami, are you on? If you are on, call and let's talk about what's happening in your community. I want to tell you something before I even go there. I said constantly, there are lots of people who want you to fight their fights, but they don't want to come on the battle line. Right? They don't want to show their face in the battle. I was calling Miram or whatever his name just now, so that he could explain to us further the situation with the poultry farm. I didn't get any answer. I call him straight, no answer. I call him my WhatsApp, no answer. Right? But people have to understand that they have to make their voices heard. So that people don't just believe that Mr. Amsterdam is making trouble because he ain't got nothing else to do. Good morning to you. Good morning.
Hello? Yes, good morning.
You're live on the program.
Okay.
And I'm showing you photographs of this area. I want you to tell us what's happening there.
Well, for the past couple of months, every time these people come and weed, they're just weeding, cleaning the drain, putting everything on the parapet. These people ain't picking up the stuff when the sun hot, everything just blowing all over. If you saw this place nasty, stink and dirty. They got better than that.
And who are these people working for?
Huh?
Who are these people working for?
They're working for the local government. They just said the local government to send them there. They ain't giving a name though.
And which area is it?
Huh?
Which area is it?
I'm not hearing you.
Which area? Which area?
This is Meadowbrook Drive. True Meadowbrook Drive.
So local government contractors doing maintenance work in Meadowbrook Drive.
Yes. And it's every month. It's an every month thing. Yeah. So I was glad for somebody real look into it.
Okay, have you ever called the city council's attention to it?
The councillor, yes, I did talk to her couple months before. I don't know if she remember, but I did highlight it to her. I did.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Bye.
So, even as we're talking about the situations, here is a resident of Meadowbrook Drive saying, listen, you got people who are doing contract work for the government of Guyana, local government. And instead of it being done properly, it's just being done. Right? In that, and it's some amount of idiocy, let me say that. Because I see it across the country again. I see it across the country. It happens in almost every neighborhood, including Buxton Falls. You have these contractors who are contracted to clean. And when they clean, they take the stuff out of the canals, etc., pull them up to the parapet and leave them. Because they pay to do what? Clean the waterways, clear the waterways and so on. And so they clean and they leave these things on the parapet. And within a day or two, within a couple of days, let's say a week and so, these things find themselves back into the very place that they were taken out of. Because common sense will tell you if you take it out of the canal and you place it on the banks of the canal and you don't move it, the elements of nature will eventually cause it to go right back into the canal. Animals grazing in the area will also cause it to go back into the canal. And even children playing in the area might cause it to go into the canal. Is it that we don't have a plan? Is it that we don't understand the assignment? Or we recognize that doing it this way will ensure that we always get paid? Doing this way will ensure we always get paid. One would believe that if the NDCs or the local government authorities has contracted the cleaning of a canal or drain or parapet to anyone, part of the requirement of that contract would be for carting away the stuff so extracted. Whether it is the NDC, the local government authority, whoever is responsible for providing the transportation to cart it away, one would understand, one would believe that there must be provisions for carting it away. And when you look across this country, that seems to be absent. But are the provisions really absent from the contract? Are the provisions really absent from the contracts? Or people are simply turning a blind eye to that provision of the contract? And instead of carting it away, giving somebody a raise under the table to not see that it wasn't carted away. That's what I want to ask you. Because when contracts are issued and entered into, engineers are supposed to supervise these contracts, whether it's construction or maintenance. The engineers are supposed to, or the works committee of the NDCs and RDCs are supposed to visit the work sites with the bill of quantities, that is with the requirements that of the contract. Examine the works done to ascertain that it was done in keeping with the contract, and then sign off on them as having been done or completed satisfactorily. And so if every month this contractor is getting paid for leaving garbage on the sidewalk, the question is the works committee doing its job? Is the engineer doing its job? Or there are connections at work? Or there are connections at work? Are citizens getting the benefit, the value of the money that is being spent by these local government authorities, by this government, on contracts of maintenance, environmental maintenance, etc.? If you're not getting the value, which I don't think you're getting, then the question is, what needs to be done to ensure you get the value? Like I said, these little things are all tied to a bigger thing. And it's called governance, whether it's local authority governance or national governance. If the folks who are responsible for managing your resources, for maintaining law and order, and not doing a good enough job, then you have the options. First and foremost, you point out to them that they're not doing a good job, you are dissatisfied. If there's no movement on that, then you make it public, man. You protest in front of their offices. Because, for example, in the instance of this poultry farm, can't be one person is affected by it. Why don't all of the neighbors get together and protest in front of the farmer? Keep it local. Protest in front of the farmer to say, bro, we know you gotta live. We know you gotta do business, but you need to do better. Fix it. And when that falls on deaf ears, as I would assume it has fallen on deaf ears so far, and complaints are made to the NDCs and nothing is being done, then protest the NDC. And that is how you bring attention to the plight. That is how you bring attention to the incompetence. That is how you bring attention to the corrupt. and you force them to act. Like somebody said, pressure bust pipe. But piping and bust if you think and get pressure. Piping and bust if you input pressure to it. And so Guyanese have to wake up from their slumber. Residents in communities and urban and suburban, rural, have to be prepared to get up, work together, and stand up for their communities. That's how I know it. But like I said, a lot of the folks now are telling you, fight this battle for me. But they're not coming to the frontline battle. They're not coming to the front line. They're not coming to ground zero. What is their excuse? I work with the government. My daughter works with the government. My son is employed by the same agency we're criticizing. I'm scared because of these things. Well, if you're scared because of them, why don't you continue to live under these poor conditions and relax? Because we're going to dead anyhow. Why don't you? But you see it as important enough to ask us at Kams TV to fight your battles. We will fight your battles. But we're saying that it would be a bigger fight and a better fight if you join the fight. That is why when some people send me stuff, I just look at it and suck my teeth. I'm being honest. Because they ain't going to come out. I never see them on a protest line. I never heard them call this line to complain about anything or to support anybody's complaint. I never recognized them as supporting the struggle. Oh, suddenly they said anything to me to fight the battle. If I tell you all some story here, listen. I know some people got some big fights that they have to fight. They're asking me to fight for them. And I fight, and when I calling them to come and join the fight, they're telling me, but the daughter working with this agency, or working with that agency, or the wife working with this agency, or that agency. And so, the publicity might have a negative impact on them. Oh, so I am superhuman. Nothing will have a negative impact on me. I'm a sacrificial lamb. Yeah, that's what activism is about. You're somebody's sacrificial lamb. They could always throw you to the wolves, but they stay at the back. And when the benefits come, you don't even know. Some of them you have to wait. Some of them you wait for a long time before you see them, and then you say, why, whatever come out of the matter? Oh, the matter, man, we settle the issue, you know. Again, nice fat check. But you didn't remember your sacrificial lamb? You remember Kams TV got to be maintained and so on? Just an example I'm giving you. That's the nature of the beast, but we will continue to do what we ought to do to keep this country, to make this country a better place, to keep public officials honest, and to demand that every citizen is treated fairly. Continue to send me those reports from your communities, and let's see what's happening. I hear, I didn't see, I heard. People say they saw certain movements which suggests that we're winning. I'll tell you more about that at a later time. Every road in Buxton remains in a bad state. Every road in Melanie remains in a bad state. Melanie and Buxton were given promises of things that are not as significant as well-surfaced roads. Pigeon Island has been given a commitment of $80 million for development. Put down your pipe and smoke it. And call me while you're smoking, let's talk about the things. It's now over 8 hours 15 on BUXTONIAN morning time. 6225933 is the number to call. Call and let's talk about what's happening in your communities. I'm listening. Call and you tell me what's happening in your community. I have to check and see if the people at Biari Street or Bikari Street, whatever it's called, as Shaspe, if the street start yet. Because like I told y'all, the protest that they ran from when they saw me was only a front. Darimlal was there quietly on the Monday. And he gave commitment to fixing the road. So I got to check and see if the road started doing already. Call and let's talk the thing. 6225933 is the number to call.
Karaki, salam to you. How are you doing? You're talking about the conversation about the NDC and the man with the cheap poultry and the hogs. A friend of mine was in a situation like that the other day, and her neighbors complained. The PHIs came, the inspectors, public inspectors came, and they deemed that she has to get rid of the animals. And I think they got her a land somewhere and make her move all those animals. So the man that is complaining went to the NDC. But he shouldn't go to the NDC. He should go PHIs with the mayor and city council. And he should go there and complain and get some action. Because you do get action. But I know in Georgetown, but I don't know for Berbice. Berbice is, I think they have the same protocols all over. So I think that's where he should go and make that complaint. And let them send the PHIs. And when the PHIs come, they determine what's going on, because in that situation, they got the filth from the hogs, and the hogs is bad, really bad. They have the filth running down the drain, the water, get into the water, then they got the stench and all of that stuff. So I understand that the man is living a very uncomfortable life in his residential area, and poultry farming and animal farming is not for residential areas. They have their own place. So people have to get themselves together, and all the laws in Guyana should be applied to these different issues. I don't understand why the laws apply to some people and they don't apply to others. But we see what kind of government we got. So we have to do better, and we have to mobilize and get them out today, because the people has power. And a lot of people don't understand the kind of power that they have. But this is my contribution for today. You have a good one.
Thank you for that voice note. Yes, a lot of people don't understand the power they have. And that is why a lot of people live in fear. Right? Police officers don't understand the powers they have. That is why they allow people to make them do crap. A lot of government officials don't understand the power they have. Right? Likewise, citizens don't understand and are not using the powers that they have. And so they end up with crappy government and state agencies. Call your life, good morning.
Good morning, Kadaki. Good talk, good talk.
Morning, are you morning? Morning, neighbor. Morning. How are you, neighbor? How are you doing? How are you doing? Well, it's Free Talk Friday. So I hope you are in a good mood. I hope you had a wonderful day yesterday. How many of you made some money? How many of you achieved those goals set? How many of you got a new job, a promotion, a demotion perhaps? Well, I don't know. How many of you took a warning letter? Most importantly, how many of you contributed to undermining this damn government? This government of wicked and vindictive people. What part did you play yesterday? Listen, Winslow, what have you built? Call us and tell us what you built. Because you keep talking about black people ain't got nothing, black people ain't build nothing, black people ain't own nothing. Call us. The lines are open for you, Winslow. Winslow alone, 6225933 is the number to call. Call us and tell us what you built, Winslow. What have you done with your time, your so precious time? What have you done? You know, folks like Winslow, they like to ride off of the energy of others. Right? It's like the hen and the wheat. The hen and the wheat. Mother hen pick up the wheat and she went home and she said, well, hey, I bring a grain of wheat. Who gonna grind them? Who gonna shell them? Who gonna grind them? Who gonna, you know, let me bake cake and so on and so forth. None of them. But when the cake was finished baking after Mother hen put in all the work, all of them wanted to benefit. Right? Rastaman said, nobody don't want to plant the corn, but they want to raid the barn. Everybody wants the benefit. Right? Everybody wants to reap the benefit from the labor of somebody else. It's not a good look. On yesterday's program, I talk about people constantly sending you their battles. But when you decide to fight their battles, they're nowhere around to even give you a glass of water. Right? And the types of Winslow, Winslow represent that kind of people. They stand on the sideline and they criticize you. You didn't do this right. You didn't do that right. Right? You didn't do this right. You didn't do that right. But they are not coming to contribute to the doing. They're not there in the planning. They're not there in the execution. Good? Good? That's the whole story. So when you see these folks come here talking crap some mornings, y'all don't like, or a lot of people believe I shouldn't give them the time of day. Right? But I have to give them the time of day. Because I simply, there's a Chinese term, I think it is, Tai Chi. I use their energy to do good, to do what I want to do. If you spend as much time building a black business class as you spend complaining, we black people would be in a much better situation economically. How do you build a black business class? Or any business class, as a matter of fact? If the powers that be are continuously impeding your efforts, continuously blocking your efforts, how do you do that? I mentioned times before, how many of our black brothers, African Guyanese brothers and sisters, have made application for facilities that will allow them to participate in certain sectors of this economy. I looked at the video last evening detailing all that Sue has, or all that Jagdeo has through Sue, whichever way you see it. And according to the Facebooker, Sue has license to import and export fuel in this country. And I remember clearly that black brother who was in the fuel import business. And as soon as the PPP got into office, as soon as the PPP was installed, Sharma and the others at Guyana Energy Authority pulled the plug on that brother. They pulled his license and put all of his workers on the breadline. And so they had to resort to protesting in front of the Guyana Energy Agency. How many of you remember that? How many of you remember that? So I don't understand this jackass. I'm calling you full mouth this morning, Winslow, coming here to talk about building a black business class. There are people who are consistently trying to build a business class. But the wicked and vindictive criminal cabal known as the PPP is continuously putting spokes in their wheels. Do I have to revisit and talk about the Lycan funeral parlor again? I see King Solomon is making efforts, I would say, to re-energize his business. King Solomon was one of the first blacks in this country to get involved, perhaps one of the first persons to get involved in the motor vehicle import business. And under the PPP was forced to leave scores of vehicles to rot because of their vindictiveness. They were bent on forcing him out of business because they recognized at the time it was lucrative and he had a near monopoly, and they were bent on forcing him out so that their people can get involved in the business and get a bigger share of the market. So what are you telling us about building business class, black business class? We have tried and we continue to try. During the coalition government, I met a brother. I'm sure I still have dozens of messages from him who detail his involvement in the fertilizer business in this country. He used to listen to me. I don't know if he's still on. But if he's on, I invite him to call. I mean, again, you might be afraid of calling and detailing his story because we know of the fear factor. But that brother detailed how he got involved in the fertilizer business for rice, especially. And how his mix was superior to every other fertilizer in this country because it was fighting paddy bugs. And it was reinvigorating the soil and all of that. And how his fertilizer was giving farmers superior yields compared to that distributed by other folks. And what they did, they squeezed them out of the market. People like Nan Prasad, according to him, he alleged that people like Nan Prasad contributed to his downfall because when the farmers take his fertilizer and it comes to reaping time, Nan Prasad used to tell them, sell your paddy where you buy your fertilizer from. And you're telling us about building a black business class. How do we build a black business class when there's this innate racism, this institutional racism and discrimination against us, how do we do it? If you can show me, Winslow, except by drinking soup and taking scraps off of the people's PPP's table, I am willing to try it. I am willing to try it. You know what I told him? The advice that he was given? But he put the thing in the Indian Guyanese name. Put the thing in the Indian Guyanese name. And so the question is to ask, how many businesses are out there with Indo-Guyanese name that really and truly black people are behind? You don't know that and you won't know that. But I'm dealing with what you know. Right? I'm dealing with what you know. This guy, I mentioned him not so long ago, who owns the Church's Chicken franchise, who owns the Mario's Pizza franchise, and several other franchises. He detailed for us in the public domain what the banks were doing to him. Discriminating against him when it came to rates and access to capital, as against how they were bending over to facilitate Indian Guyanese businesses that didn't have the track record nor the history of success that he had. So what are you really telling us? Buxton back them under the coalition opened hundreds of acres of land. Our residents started taking up those lands and started producing. What is the bugbear? It's a challenge to get in to produce, and it's a challenge to bring out your produce. And it is even worse when it is time to bring out your produce. Because if you can't get in to produce, then you utilize that time elsewhere. You don't lose it. But when you've produced and you can't get out your produce, you've lost. Because you have plantains, etc. overripening on you. Cassava, etc. overripening on you. Watermelons overripening on you. You have those challenges, and so you're producing, but you can't get the benefits of the production. You can't move from stage A to stage B because you produce and the produce is left right there to suffer, to perish. And you don't get the benefits. Why? Because the wicked and vindictive administration will not address the issue of an all-weather farm-to-market road for residents living in communities like these. What do you think? Black people ain't doing nothing? Black people are doing. Black people are innovators. But every time you do and you get to a point and you need facilities to go further along, they put a spoke in your wheel. And so you can't build a successful business class. And people talking crap. Right now, I know there is a group of black Guyanese, African Guyanese, who are working on specialty flowers or exotic flowers, whichever they call it, to use in the baking in the bakery business, cakes and pastries and breads and so on. They have reached the point where they need to hit the market, where they need access to capital. And everybody, including the government, is giving them a hard time. And what is the government's proposal? Let us take it over. Let us take it over. Come discuss with us. And when you finish discussing with us, the next thing you find is there in the hand of some Indo-Guyanese. And those who did the heavy lifting are relegated to the back. The people who allege that E-Networks that is on Kams Street is a proposal that was made to the government, the PPP government, by a black brother or a group of black brothers. And they put some spokes in a wheel, and next thing they got E-Networks and Kams Street. Prior to E-Networks, the first folk or first set of people I know doing IPTV in this country was black people. And under the PPP government, what did they do? You know what they did? You know what the PPP did? First thing they started to do is refuse them permission to sling their utility lines on on GPL poles, because there was an arrangement for them to swing their lines on GPL poles. And the wicked and vindictive PPP took that facility away from them and started giving them difficulties to force them out of the business, to make space for E-Networks. And they had, I think it's Ramup or whatever his name, had a place in, I think that's East Street, Waterloo Street perhaps, where they had a place named Stars TV or something like that. So black people have been pioneering businesses in this country. But to get the free space to grow them, the wicked and vindictive cabal has always given them a difficulty. I don't understand this idiotic statement. PNC are up in the world in office for almost the same amount of time as the PPPC. So how can you blame the PPPC for other problems, but you can't blame the APNO? We were operating. And this is the idiocy again that I like to address, so that people get a general understanding. Because when idiots ask questions, they also help us to clarify for other people who are thinking along the same line. We hear ever so often the PNC this and the PNC that, and the PNC had 28 years in government, and the PNC this and the PNC that. There's something that's called context. And so let's address the context of the PNC in power for 28 years, prior to the PPP in 1992 or whenever. The PNC was operating in a Cold War. First and foremost, the PNC was operating in an environment where it did not have ready access to capital to do a lot of the developmental projects. You go and look at the history of this country. They talk about Amila Falls hydroelectric facility. Go and check and see how many hydroelectric facilities Forbes Burnham had planned. And attempted to get done. Check on the manufacturing sector that the PNC was developing in the Forbes Burnham era. I mean, I went through that list already, and it is so sickening that you have to do it all over again ever so often. But they say constant banging destroy Pearl Harbor, and so sometimes you have to constantly bang y'all with information. Guyana had a thriving cottage industry. They used to make jams and jellies. Guava jelly, I used to love guava jelly. They used to make jams and jellies. They used to make sweet treats. We had rice cake, we had bullseye, we had something we used to call Burnham balls. We had a soft mint. We had a whole lot of things that were being made locally in our cottage industries. When Guyana didn't have access to technology and capital. But in a different era, Following the installation of the PPP, when Hyde held what I consider fair elections, quite frankly, I didn't see it as free and fair. It was another regime change, effected by Jimmy Carter then. Right? But Hyde and Greenwich, when they undertook the economic recovery program and followed the guidelines of the IMF and brought Guyana through a period of austerity measures, and as they were emerging to see the light of day, as things started turning around, because there was a lot of debt write-off and so on, and the Cold War was coming to an end and all of that, and Guyana was starting to breathe, let me call it that. The PPP came into power. And so they had access to a whole lot of things that the foundations were laid for by the PNC at that time. And they utilized the blueprint left by the PNC until such time that that blueprint in itself expired. And they never came up with a good idea since then for this country. The manufacturing sector in this country is almost not. We're importing tamarind. We're importing tamarind balls. We're importing plantain chips. We're importing the very rice flour that we were killing and criticizing the PNC about them for. We're importing rice flour. And we're importing items made from rice flour. And the same rice cake we're importing as Rice Krispies, rice cereal as Rice Krispies, and all kinds of things. In an era when this country has access to international capital, and more so when this country has access to billions of dollars through the petroleum industry, the income, natural resource earnings. And Winslow is asking why I don't blame the PNC for the things I am blaming the PPP. That is why. The PNC would have tried and failed, if you want to call it that. And quite frankly, when they were trying, they were achieving success, some level of success. This government, all it is doing is trying to subjugate citizens, control their freedoms, and thief the resources. That's what they're doing. Fatten their friends and cronies, who according to a certain tape I heard, likes to live and sleep with Venezuelan prostitutes. Maybe those are the benefits Winslow is enjoying, and so he likes them. That's a Jackie jacket. And I am saying, and if you look at the PNC government of the 70s and 80s, right into the 90s, compare to the PPP in government from the 90s into the 2000s, I give the PNC higher marks than I give the PPP for nationalism, for innovation. One would argue, and I say one would argue, because they say hindsight is 20/20 vision, that the PPP was more democratic than the PNC was. The verdict is still out on that as far as I'm concerned. Right? The verdict is still out on that as far as I'm concerned. Because when you look at the PPP, in retrospection, you ask yourself if they were or if they are as democratic as they professed to be to the people of this country and the world. Right? And until people can analyze these issues, and address them without the racist glasses or the racist biases, we are going to continue to have the likes of Winslow, who said it black, but like I say, anybody can be anybody on social media because they hide behind the screen. Thank God y'all getting to see me. And I speak my truth and I live my truth. Yes, Gladwin Webster. If you check the Kams page, you will look for the live. The live, it was on the 31st of August. July, sorry. And you will find that speech right there. But any Indo-Guyanese who wants to be honest will tell you that they had better days under the PNC. They had better days under the PNC. Don't worry, the likes of Shiraz and all of them who tell you that they ran away because they didn't get this freedom and they didn't get this freedom. They ran away because they didn't get in dal and wheat flour. And this consistent allegation against Hamilton Green that he allegedly said it was okay to rape Indian women. Indo-Guyanese was doing better in legitimate businesses under the PNC than they have done under the PPP. Note I said legitimate businesses. The thriving business, quote unquote, thriving business class in this country, labeled Indian business class in this country, for the greater part, is either in illegal business, underground business, with some legitimate front, or money launderers to the government. Money launderers, so many of them in government. Understand that? You sit and you make a list of all the quote-unquote successful big businesses in this country, albeit dominated by Indo-Guyanese, and then go through them with a fine-tooth comb and ask if they're as big as they are. If they really and truly are as big as they appear to be, or they're simply laundromats for illicitly acquired funds. Check that out. I said the other day, and I'm repeating it. People labeled him a PPP oligarch. You have a man wanted by the United States government. Wanted by the United States government for smuggling, whether it's drugs or guns, that is so wrapped up in bed with the PPP that he could have donated dozens of vehicles to the Guyana police force. And let me just tell you something. That man is Roger Khan 2.0. And I'll explain to you why is Roger Khan 2.0. When Roger Khan was having his reign with the PPP government, and this is not an allegation, this is a known fact because he himself published in the Kaicho newspaper, I think, made a page spread saying that he was fighting crime for the government of Guyana. And there are lots of other tidbits of evidence out there to show his connection. Despite laptop that he was using, records show that Leslie Ramsamy, as the government representative, signed for it. And you know the history of that. So when Roger Khan was at the top of his game with the PPP, it was alleged that he was paying salaries to the Guyana police force. It is alleged that he was paying salaries to public service, especially teachers. And so when the PPP was saying that they are doing so well for public servants and teachers, it is monies that were coming from a criminal underworld that was funding it. Imagine a crime boss being allowed to donate things to the crime fighting apparatus of your country. How then will they solve crimes? How then will they rein in that very crime boss and his or her associates? They say all that glitters is not gold. All that glitters is not gold. So you see all of these fantastic businesses front. You have to ask what is happening behind them. There's a business now at the corner of Alexander and Regent Street. Very popular business. It's now being run by Chinese. The building has been rented out to Chinese. Many will tell me that that was a successful Indian businessman who owned it. I think he also has another building at the corner of Hatfield and Kams Street. Leased out also, as far as I understand, in sections. A successful Indian businessman. So there's this successful Indian business class. But black people, African Guyanese, are not way up front there as having established a successful business class, because pound for pound, per capita, black people don't get involved in illegal businesses. They treasure their freedom. They know what they had to go through in the times of slavery, how they had to fight for the freedom. And so they treasure it. They don't really like get out there and do illegal and illicit things which have the possibility of taking away their freedom from them. I can name some people you all see as successful black people. But I will link them to the same on the world of nastiness that I'm talking about. Y'all know them. We know them. As Basil used to say, I know the man, you know the man. We all know the man. Or the men in this instance. Winslow would be the kind of person who would celebrate a black brother owning the Tower Hotel. Where's that black brother today? They're successful black businessmen. But they aren't mega millionaires, because they are successful doing legitimate business. Right here in Buxton, we got a success story. People leave all parts of this country to come to Benjamin's Bakery in Buxton. So we got success stories. I know some black brothers, they blame some BV, who are into the engineering fabrication business. They are success stories. And I can go on and on. We have success stories. In the field of education, we got success stories. All those who criticizing black people for being lazy and this and that and the other, they send their children to Morgan's Learning Institute. They send their children to, what's his name? The guy who now has a school, Sarwa. Always does well at grade 6. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I know y'all know. Look around you. They send their children to Green Acres. They send their children to Maze. Those are successful black businesses. That are legitimate. That are legitimate. They're not drug runners and gun runners. And they're not laundering money. They're legitimate businesses built from the bottom up by black people. So, Mr. Success. So what are you saying, Winslow? What are you saying, Winslow? What are your handlers sending you to tell us that we must build a successful black business class? We have successful black businesses. Look at Prestige Enterprise. I so admire that brother. I have tremendous respect for him. He started riding on a motorbike, photographer. And he has built from the ground. He's still riding on a motorbike. Right? But many of you who sit and criticize black people for failing and not succeeding and all of that, y'all can't match it. The very King Solomon that I mentioned, that y'all PPP trample, or tried to trample and put out of business. We got success stories. Charles Series, a black brother from Barbies. I think his business is called Ground Structures Engineering. Go check and see how many engineers his business employs, his company employs, and the international recognition which he has. It's not drugs and guns, it's engineering, it's brain power. It's brain power. It's not the underground economy. So we got success stories. And we're building a black business class. But imagine if the fight down wasn't as much as it is. How much grander it would have been. Right? How much grander it would have been. Consider this. Consider the number of African Guyanese brothers and sisters, families who are residing in the US of A, in Canada, in England, and elsewhere around this world, who have so often attempted to come home here and establish businesses and have been given the runaround, the royal runaround, and difficult times by the PPP. Consider that. All kinds of proposals these African Guyanese have come into this country with, and they've been given a hard time by the PPP, previous and present. Y'all remember the Kasik Banquet Hall? I think that is what it was called. It was behind Princess Hotel. When those black entrepreneurs and black business people were trying to build the Kasik Banquet Hall, because I think they were preparing for a World Cup cricket or something, the government was giving them hell while they were giving money to bodies from the state's coffers. They were lending money to bodies from the state coffers to complete the Princess Hotel. They gave the people so much hell that they reached so many rough spots, and only when people started crying out for the unfair treatment that they loaned, can't even remember what were the arrangements, some amount of money to those people related to the Kasik Banquet Hall. I hope the name is correct. But by then the project had already fallen on bad times. It could not have met the deadline to benefit from the World Cup cricket and whatever they were preparing it for. Let's talk about that. People are giving us black businesses that are doing their thing, building from the bottom. Andrew's Supermarket, Car Care Enterprise. Yes, look at the fight down they give Car Care Enterprise, Brantford. For a plot of land that was allocated to him by the APNU government so that he can establish his office complex or whatever it was. Look at the fight down. Savon's Waste Management, look at the fight down. Do you know at a time pass in order to get contracts out of, I think, the City Hall or local government, Savon's had to twin with, I think, Puran Brothers? Like I explained earlier, when they're giving a black businessman blows, they tell he join with an Indian man and we're gonna help you out. Join with an Indian man and we're gonna help you out. So what really are you folks trying to tell us? Huh? I understand gynecologist, what's his name? Dr. Who? Operated out of Queenstown. He now has his own hospital. Or is in the process of constructing it. He built from the bottom. It's not drugs money. The likes of Cushion, Courtney Ben, and so on. They built from the bottom. And what do PPP do them? Hold them by the hold them by the gonads. You gotta pay to play. And if when you're willing to pay, if we think you're going too large out of your skin, we're gonna squeeze your balls. Samuel Mingo is pointing out a child series of ground structures engineers. One of its kind in Guyana. But all or most of his income comes from overseas because the wicked and vindictive cabal in this country doesn't give him work. I remember he had to end up taking Jagdeo to court. I think he won that case, eh? Huh? Y'all remember that? And so with all my explanation, Winslow asked me, so Kidaki, are you saying that you're satisfied with the condition of black people? No! I'm not satisfied with where African Guyanese are because I know we could be farther along. But because of the discriminatory practices of this criminal cabal, named the PPP, we are where we are. And we are struggling day in, day out to first and foremost hold on to where we are and move forward, even in baby steps. Even in baby steps. But the likes of Winslow, they make it even more difficult for us. Because they sit up there like super. And they say I'm Afrocentric. but they only utter the words. They don't know what it is to be Afrocentric. Which black member of government, African Guyanese member of government, the PPP government that is, can conscientiously look the people of this country in the face and say, well, here, I was instrumental. I was instrumental in contributing to the change of the black African Guyanese plight in this country. Do you know that the PPP was in office when the International Decade for People of African Descent was declared by the UN? When the UN said, look, black people across the world are so discriminated against, are so oppressed and so on, that we are going to dedicate a decade to them so that we can give them the support to rise, to catch up. The PPP was in office. The PPP under Jagdio, what's his name, Ramatar, they never lifted a pen to effect the declaration of the United Nations. They never lifted a pen. Never. It took the David Granger AP and UFC to implement policies and make financing available to an African organization, give birth to an African organization now known as IPADG as we call it. International Decade for People of African Descent, Guyana. And the PPP done what it was supposed to do. We could have been farther along. Do you know there are provisions in the laws of this country for, I think, at least 10% of government contracts to go to small contractors? Find out. Find out if it is being utilized. If all that was necessary for small contractors to benefit from that clause has been put in place. Find out. The Public Procurement Commission, which gave you a sense of fairness in awards of contracts because they were supposed to be independent and unbiased in the assessment of public tenure and so on. Since the PPP came into office and the life of the Public Procurement Commission expired, have they reconstituted it to give black contractors a fair chance? What they do? They keep it out so cabinet still gets to pronounce on who gets what. A racist government pronouncing on who gets contract, who you think they're going to give it to? Who you think they're going to give it to? I mentioned the situation of people having to attach photographs now when they're applying for jobs. Who you think can get the jobs? Who you think can get the jobs? Scholarships again, per capita. If you look at the number of people who go on scholarships through the government of Guyana, when the award is fair, you will recognize pound for pound that blacks are in the forefront running for those scholarships. When you look at the awards, And when they finish training and they come back, look at the employment practices of this government and tell me if they are fair. Tell me if they are fair. And then you could come and ask me about black business class and why we don't have a successful black business class. Well, I've just established that as far as I know, we have a successful black business class. It is not 10%, or it may not be 10%, but it exists. And it was built on honesty and hard work. And not the underground economy and gun runnings and drug runnings and money laundering and stealing government's capital. All of you will sing the praises of E-Networks. Wow! Look at this massive telecommunication infrastructure that these people got around this country and so on. It was built on the backs of Guyanese. Because Guyanese taxpayers' monies were siphoned off and used in whatever way, shape, or form. And they're continuing to do it. I will give you the evidence soon enough. They're continuing to do it. And they're being given unfair advantage. All the schemes that are being developed now under the PPP, despite the fact that many of the blueprints were done under the AP and UFC, go and see which telecommunication company has been given the go-ahead to set up towers in them or close to them. Find out why Digicel is not being given a certain category of license. Why GT&T is not being allowed to expand. And you will come to understand that these companies are being stifled to give leeway to E-Networks. And you ask people, where is the successful business class of black people? Do you remember the son of Ramatar, Alexi? How much money he was being paid to lay the fiber optic cable from Brazil to Guyana? Did Guyanese get value for money? Find out where that money went. Let me inform you that the PPP has been using their own people to siphon off money from the treasury of this country into the PPP pockets and into their friends' pockets. When you see a certain contractor or a certain employee earning super salaries, in many instances, they're signing for super salaries. A fraction of it goes to them and the rest goes to the PPP oligarchs. And you're still asking, where is the black business class, the successful black business class? We are existing. But we're building brick by brick by brick, honestly. We ain't got no $20 million or $200 million in no bank account because we're selling phone cards. Phone cards where you get 4% returns on investment. We didn't know how to get $200 million in a bank account from phone cards. How many phone cards do you have to get? Do you have to sell to make $200 million? How many? Y'all did the math? Are we not saying for Guyana to grow? The PPP must go. Do you know that this country is slipping on the transparency on the corruption index? Yes, we're slipping again. Why? We were able to do better, move higher up the index under the coalition. But since the installation of the PPP, we are slipping. Why? Because they know about honesty? I doubt it. I doubt it. You got people in the government, vice presidents and so on, who are trafficking in your Guyanese citizens and carrying them to Suriname to pick fear. Yes, pick fear. In hotels that are owned by them in Suriname. And so how do we expect them to tackle trafficking in persons when they themselves are the traffickers? But they're successful business people. All of these superstructures, these fancy modern hospitals, hotels, and casinos that are being constructed by this individual and that individual and this business and that business, find out who the beneficial owners are and how much of state funds are invested in them clandestinely. Just like the Borvis Bridge, where your NIS contributions were invested and you can't get nothing out of it. Let's address that, Winslow. Let's talk about the unequal, unlevel playing field that black businessmen and women have to contend with. And then ask the question, where is a successful black business class? You're a successful black business in this country for the mere fact that you can survive the environment. And those of us who are struggling, who are fighting to change it, will continue to struggle and fight to change it. Because we know that so long as it is changed, not only will the black business class grow, but every business class legitimately will grow in this country, and the country will grow. Join us in that struggle and stop talking crap for the scraps of the PPP table. It is now 90 minutes past 8 o'clock hour. The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. Caller, you were right on the button. You're live. Caller, you're live.
Hey,
Good morning.
Good morning. I want to say something to you quickly. I made a comment and they refused to let it go through the media because you were speaking on a subject of Indian business people as against blacks. And I wrote that all the established Indian business since in the days of British Guyana came about through criminal activities. They killed, they murdered, they committed arson. In the modern days, I went abroad to do business, transacting business with the natives of the place, white people. And when they understood I was from Guyana, they refused to continue because Indian people went and did a lot of dishonest things. These are set of dishonest people. There is the history of the Rajas and the different people and how they killed and committed arson. Even Burnham got involved when he came back as a lawyer. Milwaukee, go into the annals of the history and you'll see. Let them know who are their people. Thank you.
Thank you. Lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. Let's talk about success. This is a version of PPP success. I want to show you all something. Let me see if I get it. Might have to log into, see if it will load. Y'all got a man telling me you can't find brown sugar in the markets. Guyanese citizens are now forced to line up and are being rationed the commodity that is manufactured in this country, sugar. Call it live, good morning.
Good morning, Roberta. Thank you for just that I a certain 007 from Melody stated that form alliance with people who think like you and not those who look like you. Little do he know, those that he thinking like, right? Don't like customs, just as lesser than humans, right? And under that post, there was an Indian guy who made a post that said, tell him to go study the Ashanti people and he will understand why Afro-Guyanese are like this, right? Well, I want him to know the Ashanti people are successful, black people out here in Kenya, Ghana, etc. Right? I want him to go and study the Dalits of India and he will understand why Indian people are like that. That's why I want him to go and study. You know, we got social stories we could talk about. These people do not start anything. You start anything in a village, they're going to come behind you and try to put you out to business, underprice it, and water it down. They take money, they never ever started nothing. Nothing. The brother with the grapes, you soon will see someone of them will come and make some little cherry grapes. Right? You farm some grapes and make cherry grapes and call it big set of money. But don't worry with them. And as to Mr. Winslow, he's like rose bread fruit. Black outside or white inside. If he claims that he's black. Have a good day.
Thank you. The man is shifting the goalposts. The man says he's happy to know that I can highlight the black business class, but he hasn't been seeing what I am doing. I was tempted to invite him to send somebody to see what I'm doing. But sometimes I might like who he will send. You know? So let us keep it like that. I am doing what I'm doing. I'm educating the masses. That for me is a contribution you will never be able to match with, though. Call A Live, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Kadaki. About the things, the PPP is always talking about the 28 years of the Burnham era. There should be a shame because within the 28 years, we became an independent country, a Republican state, and all the things that Burnham did, he built that bridge across the Demerara River, and the things that when he built the bridge, soon as the bridge was completed, we could travel on the bridge at a cheap rate. The bridge didn't have to be repaired. Unlike the bridge at Barbies, when the bridge first come into commission, it had to be repaired because it wasn't done properly. He built the road to Linden, down the highway. Plus he opened up schools that all of them who were denied the schools because they were not Christian children were allowed to start flooding places like QC Bishops, Saints, Josephs, and Roses, and St. Stanislaus because of Burnham. Plus, Burnham had a lot of factories, glass factory, bicycle, Greco, all those things. We canned our own juices and all the like. We had a better lifestyle. On the Burnham era, he made certain he put school welfare officer to collect them from going and plant beer milking cow, hauling gira in the trench, selling fish, eating cockabelly and them thing, and educated them. So they should not be against Borno. And when they did get into the country, getting back as ruler, when people spoke to Chedi and asked him, what will they be? Because he said, down with backside, up with sugar. He forget it, he call how many 100 days strike in the sugar belt. That is now we feeling it. Because Barnum said, people may not live, but who live will see what the rippling effect of that massive sugar strike. They get upon the top. So they have to destroy this country. And when it comes to them talking about business, we were in business. And they come like what the man said, the underprice, the undercut, they put people in there to thief out and do all kind of things to plunder this country. And when it comes to this e-networks, e-networks provide internet service. The lowest internet service is like equivalent to GT&T, second rate like the silver. That is their first internet rate. And when you first log in on e-networks, they give you full speed. And when you see you get into them about 2 going into 2 and 3 months, the speed cutting down. Because remember, they deriving their internet off of GT&T and they cannot carry the load. We got to add this right in front of my street, but I wouldn't go to them. Moving along. Now I heard you mentioning about the excursion. I'll be happy for that. And I wish you could remember a few weeks, months back, you did something with some people from Borbies where you tried to help them with the thing was the community center and you garnered funds there. I think Mr. Alfred Morgan should be the foot soldier to look for a good place for us to come and sit as a group. Many of us from this show and other shows and spend a nice day out in Borbies. We'll get to know another part of Borbies and we'll be able to interact with people from that area who makes contributions and probably support your show. So I hope, and we could look at the 24th of October. That is a holiday. Monday we could go. That is my points to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Rhonda. You know, I hate a loser. Because that is what Winslow is, a loser. Losers continuously shift the goalpost. They don't accept when they lost. Suddenly I don't see what you're doing. You're a complainer. I'm not a complainer. I'm a highlighter. I'm highlighting the wickedness of the government. And those who are feeding you. That's what I'm doing. Right? I'm not complaining. I'm a doer. Trust me, I do. And I'm doing right now. Because what I'm doing makes you and your handlers uncomfortable. Calling live. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Kadaki. Good morning, everyone in the diaspora. Good morning, all Guyanese. While we are on the subject of business and contributions made by African Guyanese, so I want to build on that topic. We are now moving into an age where us in the diaspora, those of us who are living in the United States in particular, those who are putting political pressure, have come to a point whereby that pressure is also putting pressure on the PPP from the United States. And the United States installed them on the trunk, and so it's the United States' job to a point to pressure the PPP and get them back on a democratic track of things. So recently we see the arrival of the Mercantile Bank by Mr. Floyd Hinds.
The Mercantile Bank is a very significant prelude into the phase that we're moving now. The Mercantile Bank president and chairman, Mr. Hayes, said he used to work for USAID and he used to work for the State Department. That's very important, and he was being very transparent. He wasn't trying to hide any of these things. He said, look, he did auditing for the USAID. That's a branch of the president agency and State Department. Now, it appears to me that this Mercantile Bank will be financing entrepreneurship in Guyana. So it looks to me
lost that call, it would seem. Yes. In order to fix a problem, you first have to identify the problem. And we recognize the problem as being the PPP in government and their policies. Those are the things which are hindering the development of a black business class. And don't only tell yourself, call all the line. Don't only tell yourself that these policies are restricted to the government agencies. They're extended to the private sector. They're extended to the banking sector. Because here it is. When the financial institutions can find ease or find comfort, call all the line, to deny black businesses access to capital, it means that the government is in league with them. Because the government controls the oversight agencies. And so when the oversight agencies are not doing anything to ensure that the playing field is leveled across the banking sector, so that every citizen can have equal or fair access, it is just a transferal of the policy of the government to be discriminatory that is taking place in the banks. Somebody asked the question, caller, hold the line. Somebody asked the question, who owns E-Network? I guess that's a new student. E-Network is owned, I think, by Vishal Prasad. He's the son of, let me start by saying, I think he's the brother of Vindhya Prasad. He's the son of the late Pandit Ripu Daman Prasad, who was a PPP Minister of Government. If I'm not lying, that was the first Minister of Government for the PPP that you see Guyana made a complaint to the Ombudsman about because he accepted a bribe in the form of a motor vehicle registered to his son from one of the contracting companies. If I'm not lying again, it might have been BK Tiwari. I don't remember the history exactly.
Look, forget this. Yeah.
Coffee. 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 Coffee is not hearing us. I don't know why. Good. So keep that in mind. And some government money was being channeled to your network. Somebody asked if it's a Guyanese business. Yes, it is a Guyanese business. It is a PPP front. And I said to you, I will give you evidence of what they're doing in there. And let me tell you this. I said it before and I'm saying it again because, as our Renard would say, without the fear of successful contradiction. E-Networks is one of the PPP's spy center. I've always advised people on this program, regardless of how bad GT&T internet is, don't go to E-Networks. Some people believe I want to sabotage your business. It ain't got nothing to do with sabotage. I'm protecting you. Rwanda says they give you the fastest speed at the beginning, and then you realize the speed disappears. But most importantly, and I'm telling you, because I've dabbled in it, I was the first and only person to sell wireless internet in Buxton. I guarantee you that. First and only person to sell wireless internet in Buxton. So Winslow, again, just take a sneak peek into my mind. I am a doer of things. I stopped selling wireless internet once Blaze came in because I couldn't compete. And I couldn't expand either because I wasn't getting licensed to expand. I wasn't even getting licensed to operate. Right? Because of the wicked system. So let me tell you, if I'm your internet provider, I can track you. I can know all the sites you go to. I can know what you listen to. If I have the requisite equipment. And if this government, the PPP, went as far as to buy equipment back in the days of Roger Khan so that they can, what we call it, triangulate people's cellular calls. Imagine if they have an entire telecommunication entity, what they will do inside here. Right? They are using LTE, long-term evolution. It means long-term evolution. You could do phone, you could do data, you could do whenever it comes to the internet and services, all of it can be done. It's a one-stop shop. You can get television, you can get phone, you can get data for browsing, you can get security. All of that is done from e-networks. And some people run for the one shop. They go, let's get this package. But in the package, there's also monitoring of citizens of this country. There is also monitoring of citizens of this country. And so if they find you an opposition supporter, and you're sharing BUXTONIAN morning time and it is reaching people, they put a block on it. So when you share it ain't going no way. When they listen to your phone calls, and they realize that you are influencing minds by what you're saying, they create jams in your signals so it can't go no way. You know the many mornings we are here discussing and our viewership goes to zero. Whoops! Because they jam the signal. Right? That's what they do. That's what they stole and continue to steal government money to do. They're empowering networks through their policies and unfair advantage, because that is their spy center, whether they're in or out of government. Tell them I say that. I know they're listening, so they would have heard me say that anyhow. They could come rushing through. Because like I like to say, a friend of mine reminded me yesterday, as long I hear you say, I got my ducks lined up. I don't think I need to remind you that when I speak from a position of getting the thing. But I was talking to you about unfair advantage. I want to show you all this. Anybody knows the salary of Sister Rising? The sugar man. They told you that they will make sugar sweet again. They told you they will reinvigorate the sugar industry and stuff like that. What do you know? Well, you know that there's a shortage of sugar in this country. Sister Rising tells us there's no shortage of sugar in this country. He said there's a shortage of packaged sugar. Well, let me explain to you. First and foremost, let me take him on his word and explain to you That shortage in packaged sugar is possible because they lease out the packaging plant. At least they said they lease it out. So one of the oil and gas trading facilities at Enmore, the packaging plant was at Enmore. They lease out the old packaging plant to some entity in the oil and gas industry for training and simulation and whatever. They said they're transferring the packaging plant to Skeldon or wherever, Albion, wherever. And so if you don't have a packaging plant, you can't package. Let them tell you that. That's number one. Number two, they tell you they ain't got shortage of sugar. He said they got bulk sugar. But my sources tell me, if the sugar that they're selling at the Guyana Marketing Corporation that they're limiting you to 4 pounds or whatever, it's sugar coming from Brazil and Mexico or Guatemala, wherever. It is not sugar manufactured in Guyana. So the sugar czar is importing sugar. And telling Guyanese that Gaisuko got sugar. Dishonesty. And for that he's being paid millions of Guyanese dollars per month. Taxpayers' money. Millions of Guyanese dollars to mismanage the sugar industry. Look what he was earning before he became the sugar czar. Look at your screen. Says Narayan Singh. That is what he was earning. Y'all seeing it? $10.88 an hour. How many hours in a day? Give him 24 hours. He works all day. $10.88 per hour. When he comes to this country and he's earning millions of Guyanese dollars to import sugar for distribution in Guyana. Keep that in mind. Karen Jainarain says, I'm very dishonest. Show me my dishonesty. Show me my dishonesty, Karen. Dishonesty is in the blood of the PPP. The lines we made open 6225933 is the number to call. BUXTONIAN morning time you're tuned to. I don't even think I need to discuss that tape with Vera and Sis Narayan Singh and the rest of the board. And Vera talking about dishonest Sis Narayan Singh is. That's what they do. They concoct situations to suit themselves so they can get fat bribes. Okay? And when they can't deal with the message, they attack the messenger. I don't sleep with Venezuelan prostitutes. What I got to do with me managing the board? Caller you live, good morning.
Morning, Kadaki, and morning, Guyana. Kadaki, this information just need to spread more than, than it's being broadcast. I mean, this thing needs to be taken worldwide, although yes, on Facebook it is, but a lot of people need to hear it. And for the Guyanese people to actually understand what's going on. I know the Indians simply just wouldn't, they gloss over it. And when you come up with facts, they have nothing to combat it except to say you're racist. Speak to the facts, Indian people. Imagine that. $10 or something an hour, and he's making, and I believe his salary is for $9,000. That's a lot of friggin' money. And that's how they're able to get a leg up on African Guyanese, because they fund their own people, and they simply give African Guyanese peanuts. And the few African Guyanese that are supporting them get crumbs. But simply, it is a silencer, in my opinion, that when the African Guyanese decide to partner with them, they cannot say anything against them, and they just keep their mouth shut. Or when you're about to apply for contracts and you can't say nothing, that's when, you know, they'll say, well, I mean, I can't really say anything because I'm not going to get a contract. So when they get a contract, they still are quiet because their service have been bought and paid for. So Guyanese just need to wake up and see it and have this, not have this nonchalant way of thinking, well, what we can do. I like the suggestion that Rhonda brought up of excursion in different parts of Guyana. You get a black-owned bus company, and you go to different businesses around Guyana, and basically you having discussions, you talk, and that's where you be able to carry the message. So I think that's a great idea, and it don't have to be on a holiday. It could be a once a month, every 3 months type of thing. So at least you're consistent and bringing information to the people all over Guyana, and especially where our African brothers and sisters are. So because they need to see us in those lights, they need to see us in numbers, going out there and talking and educating them, especially the youngsters. If we expect any better in the next 20 years, we need to start training up these youngsters, telling them about their history and their roots. And it will get better. But as long as we stay on the sideline and do nothing, these folks have already captured 80% of the country. And we've got to do, we need to take it back. Take the country back. And that's my take.
Thank you, caller. Yes! So we take a tax preparer and make him manager of the Guyana sugar industry. The tax preparer, says Narayan Singh, was earning $10.88 an hour. Is now earning millions of Guyanese dollars per month for mismanaging the sugar industry. But he will come and we tell you, I've achieved. What have you black guys done? Huh? He's being fattened by the public trough, by the public funds. He's not being paid commensurate with his qualifications. They got people in the public service more qualified than Sis Narayan and can do a better job in managing the sugar industry. But the black, the African Guyanese, we got a Buxtonian, Corbett Victorine, was a manager in Jamaica in the sugar industry. Yeah, he was there until the PPP took over. Well, he came back and was a guy school, and he was there until the PPP took over. And put him out of a job. Just like they did Georgiana, is that her name? Audriana Thomas and others? Yeah. Audriana Thomas was one of the best PRO guys who was ever seen. And they put her out of a job. I wonder who's doing that now. I bet they're straight. Call A Live, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Brother Kadaki. Good morning to viewers and listeners. My comment this morning, you see the social media? People need to start realizing how powerful it is. right? And that's why I encourage people to share the live and encourage the friends and families to watch these shows. Because what the previous call talked about and spoke about and another caller before as well, about having busing other areas, having buses and so on to go into other areas around the country so the people could hear us and could know what's going on. That's a good thing too, because we do need boots on the ground and I need people love physical interaction. But social media, I think it's a major thing, and we need to support it. We need to also as viewers, people in diaspora and in the country, and as viewers in the whole, we need to encourage our friends and families and so on. So I'm hoping that people listen and they will do so to watch these programs and ask them to share the live as much as they can. So yeah, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Joseph Winslow keeps kicking the line, kicking the finish line, man. He keeps moving the line along, man. Watch it, man. He might fall off the club. The lines are open. 6225933 is the number to call. We got 8 minutes to program time. Let me see if they have voice notes. Let me see if they have voice notes. Caller live, good morning.
Good morning, Kadaki. I'm listening to your comment. Right now, the WPA is being running just like Gaisuku. Gaisuku is being managed by people who don't know about it. It's a political party and has someone else from another party representing them in parliament. Tell me which part in the world you got to
Stop, stick a pin. I don't want you to come off this call.
Someone else from another party. My question to you, when would someone from the WPA be in parliament? We have the likes like David Hinds.
Stick a pin. I hear the question. I hear the question, man. You gotta give me examples. I know all who we got. Right? I know all who we got. But understand this.
So why they not representing the people?
Man, listen, man. Are you going to listen?
Can you? No. I want you to tell me which part in the world a political party have someone else from another party representing them.
You finished?
Yeah.
Good. You want me to tell you what you don't want to shut up and listen. I'm going to tell you. Let's start with that. Now hear me. You got it wrong, brother. The person in parliament doesn't represent the WP. If you were following your politics, hey, man.
I'm listening.
If you're following your local politics and you understand what's happening, you will know that the WPA left the coalition before they were even given a parliamentary seat. As a matter of fact, they left the coalition over fallout, over who has the right to select who goes to parliament for the WPA. And so whoever's in parliament doesn't represent the WPA and is not a member of the WPA. The WPA doesn't have a parliamentary representative, at least not up until now. So get that right. So I don't need to tell you where in the world somebody else represents another political party in parliament. That's not the case. You're totally misunderstood.
Kibaki, the WPA was in the coalition that contested the 2020 election, isn't that so?
Yes.
So good. So people voted for the WPA in the coalition.
Yes.
So what you're telling me doesn't make any sense.
What are you? Oh, you mean it doesn't make any sense?
People voted for WPA in the 2020 election.
Furthermore, let me say this. People voted for the coalition in the 2020 election.
People, no man, no.
You cannot hear me, man. Listen to me.
Listen
You
to
cannot.
People voted
Hear the man. Listen to man. You cannot separate WPA vote from APNU vote, from AFC vote in the last election. It was a coalition that
cannot do
contested the
but
election.
You can support a political party. You can support a specific political party. And I'm talking about the WPA. You got Kadaki. So then, what you're telling me doesn't make sense. You got people supporting the WPA. You got people supporting the PNC. You got people supporting the AFC. And that's what you call a coalition.
Can you, sir, what I should say, disaggregate those votes? And say, well, so many was for the WP and so many for the APNU and so many for the FC?
You know what you're telling me? You just put your foot in your mouth. How can you know dead people vote? You can't disaggregate those votes.
No. Why? This morning has sense of reasoning. How can I tell that dead people vote? I can tell dead people voted because the records are there to show. I can tell dead people voted because the records are there to show.
So then I am telling you, if I'm a supporter of the WPA, I voted for the WPA.
You voted for a coalition in which the WPA is a part.
No, correct. But then why did WPA can't have a representative? They contest the election.
Let me explain to you again. The WPA, on a point of principle, left the coalition and refused to accept the seat. So it's not a case of the WPA accepting a seat and somebody else sitting in that seat. It is a case of the WPA saying, on this matter of principle, we disagree, and unless you can fix it, we are leaving the coalition. And that is what was done.
Yeah, but okay, fine. I understand that. But the person that is occupying a seat in Parliament, there's a brand new party that never contested the election.
But that's a matter for the leader of the list, not a matter for the WPA.
But that is corruption, Kanaki.
But I'm not saying it's not corruption. I am saying it's a matter for the...
corruption.
I am saying it's a matter for the leader of the list. It's not a matter for the WPA.
You know, some better PNC person has been robbed as a representative.
So again, you're just like Winslow. You're shifting the bar. That's not what we're discussing. Who is being robbed?
Kadaki, listen to me. You're talking about transparency and accountability. Okay, forget the WPA left the party. But how can you have someone who has no representative, who don't have a constituency
in
Parliament? That's not fair to other members of the coalition. Tell me.
Sir, the discussion of fairness to other members of the coalition and a better PNC person being robbed is not a matter for me. That's a matter for the leader of the list. The leader of the list. No, I'm not. I am not. Had I been there, I would have made that argument. I am not. WPA is not.
Kadaki, have a good morning.
You too.
And enjoy the rest of your night.
It's simple. You see, sometimes, as I said, there's a thin line between love and hate. We have to be able to differentiate these things. WPA is not a part of the coalition. It was. It was. Who occupies the seat? Therefore, it's not WPA's business. Because it's like you leave, got on the line. You're married to a woman. You left this woman. You move on. But you want to dictate who lies in her bed? You're wrong. It's dumb, sir. Call your life. Good morning.
All right, good morning. Good morning, Amsterdam. Don't worry, that guy come program. He came with that call well program. And that is what getting him confused. You understand? It's simple. I don't think anybody else could have put it over much simpler than what you did. But he bent on his mission. That's the reason why he's talking a set of outcome. You know, he don't know one thing what he's saying, and then just making himself a spectacle. You know. Quickly, you are on the money with Taste the Rhine. And that's the reason why, under the coalition, when he made that bid, and that was his main focus, to become the CEO of that industry, that sugar industry. And because of what you have shown today on your show, the evidence about Taste the Rhine, that is what was discovered. And it could have gone alongside the others who had their resume in there for the same position. Taste the Rhine don't know anything about sugar. All Taste the Rhine know about is that tax setup. And that same area, that same address, he used to live around that same area there, and you would have, when the coalition was campaigning, you were surprised to hear some of the things that he talked about the PVP that he's right now under, just because his focus was about the sugar industry. So what you show there and talk about disclose about Taste the Rhine isn't false. There's a reason why he could not get in the position. Under the coalition, he was kicked out, and that is what eventually pitched him off, and he went back across the aisle and apologized and did what he had to do, and Jack gave him the position. So that's my little take, Kaziki. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I got to listen. I ain't ever deal with idiocy. I ain't ever deal with no idiocy. Listen, Karen Singh, go back where you been, yeah? Try Chi, go back where you come. I ain't ever deal in this foolishness. Anyhow, it's program time. It's 3 minutes past the 9 o'clock hour. I've had my say, you have had your listening, you have also had your say. Who knows? Tomorrow we might have some Kams Saturday rhythms. I've been missing for a week or so. What better argument of facts you want, Winslow? What better argument of facts you want? I present facts when I come here. It's y'all just come for call names and so. I present facts. But what, y'all intellectually lazy that you can't recognize facts when you see it? Says Narayan Singh earning $10.88 an hour as a tax preparer. No managing Gaisuko for what? Somebody say $5,000 US a month. That's $1 million. And other perks, free air travel to the US, as he calls it, home, and so on and so forth. What's wrong with y'all? Y'all intellectually lazy. Anyways, y'all have a good day. I'm happy to know that I've ruffled some feathers. I began to say with Lil Wayne. I must come through with Lil Wayne or for Lil Wayne. What are you saying? Have a good day, y'all. Goodbye.